Awkward Insurance. We're continuing our exploration of various job roles in and adjacent to the insurance industry. Most of them have been adjacent to, and that's okay because I think all of us in the insurance industry need to know a little bit more about who we're working with. James, no offense to what I'm about to say, but today's guest is one I had to really think about. I think I've had to do more research on you than I have any other guest. James, how do you feel about that?
Strangely excited.
Strangely excited. Well, I didn't find anything too interesting. So no, I'm just kidding. I found everything fascinating and wholly interesting. This guest has experience in several areas. If you believe in thought leadership, I'm pretty sure James has that under wraps. And so I kind of want to hone in on that as a job role, maybe thought leader as a job role. I've seen it pop up in job descriptions, but can it be a job title? James, do you think thought leader can be a legitimate job title? Like, here I am at the Risk and Insurance Education Alliance, and my job title is thought leader.
Well, professional authors and speakers are by very definition professional thought leaders. So I think it is a job title, although, mine is CEO of a software company. I think that all CEOs should be thought leaders in their own companies. And
do you think all CEOs are thought leaders?
No, absolutely not. No.
Oh. Let's go down that route. No, I'm just kidding. James is the CEO of JB Knowledge, CEO and founder of Terra.insure. Did I get that name right?
Yeah.
Terra.insure.
Terra. Yeah, the website's Terra.insure. Yep.
Okay, which is a work comp technology company. Would that generalize? Okay, awesome.
Work comp policy and claim software. Yep.
Nice. And he's also on the board of Regents at Texas Southern University, where you've served 5 years as an adjunct professor and still mentor students today.
Yeah, I served 5 years at adjunct at Texas A&M, and then I got appointed to the board at Texas Southern, and I resigned my teaching spot so I could go serve on the board. The governor of Texas asked me to come on the board for Texas Southern in 2020, right in the middle of COVID. And so I've been now for quite a while.
Nice. And he's also the host of a very little-known podcast called InsurTech Geek podcast. Did I get that right? Where discussions are about technologies transforming the insurance industry and everything that comes with that. Little known, I probably under-exaggerated that just a little bit. James, welcome to Awkward Insurance. We're very happy to have you here and all the research that I've done.
I'm awkwardly happy to be here.
Nice. I have a quick question. Have you heard of LinkedIn roast?
No, I'm on LinkedIn all the time, but I have not heard of LinkedIn roast. Have
you ever been roasted?
Roasts in general make me so uncomfortable because there's I watch Comedy Central and I watch all their celebrity roasts, and I just cringe and have to crawl out of my skin because I think there's just so much cruelty underneath all the humor that I tend to avoid them.
Oh no. Can I tell you what LinkedIn roast said about your profile?
What? Sure, go ahead.
Okay, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I'm telling you, you should do it. And the only reason why I say this is because I did it to myself. And just like you said, you're not prepared for it. I was offended at what it said about me, but then I was like, right, it's AI and it's a roast, and this is literally what roasts are supposed to do. So let's just hone in on one. And I'm going to read this with my best toddler book reading voice that I can when I read a book to my child at night. So, as his crowning achievement, the InsurTech Geek podcast, because who doesn't want to fall asleep while driving their Tesla? I'm sure you've captivated all 8 of your listeners, most of whom realize they accidentally tuned in while trying to adjust their Bluetooth settings. James, in the world of LinkedIn brags, if your profile were a person, it would be that guy who stands way too close to you in an elevator, reeking of Axe body spray and desperation. But hey, buddy, you keep being you because somebody's got to be.
That's hilarious. Hilarious in the inaccuracy on some things, but also, I hate body spray, just to be clear.
I was going to ask, next question, do you own Axe body spray? Next question, did you use it when you were in high school?
No.
Come on!
Ricard Noir. Ricard.
Is that fancy?
Well, we all thought it was fancy. It was actually pretty cheap, but it's like I thought Mad Dog and Boone's were fancy too, and turns out that was the bottom barrel of alcohols you could drink when you were a teenager. So, age gives you all kinds of perspective on all kinds of things. And you realize, hey, that wasn't so cool to drink Mad Dog 2020 out of a straight.
You've got a leg up on me. When I put my profile in through the LinkedIn roaster, I think I only had 4 listeners. So at least you have 8. I only have 4. So congratulations, bud.
I've never been to this. It's, I guess it's LinkedInroast.me. And I went to
there's a couple of different ones. When I Google it now, I guess some people got on the bandwagon and developed their own. Some of them are pretty harsh, and I will say have very hateful undertones. But the one that I used for this one, I guess if we're going to give credence to it, it's liroast.web.app. Is the one that I originally discovered and kind of put my own roast through. But yeah, no, they're definitely fun. When you want to feel like you suck at something, you can roast yourself.
Oh no, I just did one on a different one, roastlinkedin.com, and that one was really funny. It's making me crack up. That's awesome. Thanks for that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, honestly, James, I think I kind of know where I want to go with this particular episode. And there's one thing in particular that as I was going through is it Benham? Did I say that right?
Oh, yeah.
Who is James Benham? Do you know the answer to that question?
I think that's pretty existential, right?
Listen, I had a lot of existential questions in a recent session that I held. Why are you here? Why the Awkward Insurance Podcast? No, we're not going to go into that. There was something that I heard. I believe this was on a YouTube channel called Startup Grind Local. Do you remember this conversation?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, awesome. It was a great session. There was a lot of information in there, like a lot of information. But one thing I kind of really want to hone in on is something that kind of hits home here at the Alliance for us. We have education on the professional level, but we've also got it at the high school and the college level. So let's focus in on this emerging talent, pre-professional kind of situation. And you said specifically something to the effect of it doesn't take much to tip someone over the edge and make them an entrepreneur. And then you said something like $1,000 and a little bit of mentorship. Later on, you said a whole lot of mentorship. So I let that roll around. I think I replayed it 500 times. So whomever's channel that is on, you just got a ton of hits from me rewinding that YouTube video over and over again. But that kind of hit home for me. And I think one thing I was thinking about is, man, I'm 20 years into my profession, but if early on in my career, if somebody gave me the tools, and I'm going to use some of your words, and I hope I use them correctly, to bootstrap, you love that word, to bootstrap my own kind of thought process and mentorship. And I'm not going to talk about money on this, but my own mental banks here to really have confidence in myself. Would I have eventually discovered that I don't have to be somebody's employee for the rest of my life? I could use my knowledge and my expertise to then become comfortable because I was mentored or somebody invested in me. What thoughts are rolling around in your head right now?
Yeah, I mean, I've been at this company since I started in my dorm room in 2001. So it's been 23 years.
When you say this company, which one in particular?
JB Knowledge is my mothership, right? So
nice.
Yeah, so that's the company that I started in 2001. I had another company called SmartBid that I started as a subsidiary in 2006. Sold it in 2018 to a big competitor of mine. Really great deal. We had about 1,200 enterprise accounts on that platform. About 250,000 subcontractors used it every day, and it was a really fun ride. And I've gotten to build and sell companies, and I've gotten to build new ones, and had to shut some down because they weren't successful. And I'm kind of back in the grind again with Terra. We just built this new core platform. We wanted to go after the core platform space with work comp, and so much of whether or not something is going to be successful is just hustle and grind. But you really have to have some advisors. You have to have people giving you advice. Even when you're like me, 23 years into it, I still have close advisors I ask a lot of questions to. It still takes some money, right? I mean, in my case, to get the company off the ground was initial investment of $5,000, then a $60,000 loan after that, a ton of, and a little bit of advice, a lot of advice from really three. I could name 3 people that were my father, super heavy advisor, and my first 2 early clients that became really heavy advisors for me. And I guess my point in making that statement at Startup Grind, and shout out to Shelly Brinkman for running a really great organization in Startup Grinding, helping organizations get that advice. That's what she does here in Bryan College Station, is that she takes these young students and she provides the advice and then connects them with money so that they can get their ideas off the ground. My point is that the difference between some people's entire lives and their careers is really a little bit of money and a lot of advice. Mentoring is so undervalued at the college classroom level. That is something I talk about a lot when I teach, when I did teach for 5 years, and when I get to guest lecture. Still, I get called in to guest lecture in business classes, technology classes, and I'll really emphasize that, because it's a really big part of being able to survive the challenges of starting a business. I mean, business is really difficult. Entrepreneurship is really difficult, largely because there's just so many bad things happen to you. You know, like Murphy's Law happens all the time, and mentors help you can navigate and steer through that and keep you motivated, keep you focused. You know, and so that's really what I was trying to get at, is that it really doesn't. If you're bootstrapping, then you're gonna take a little bit of money and turn it into a lot of money by delivering a service that generates profit, right? And a lot of people don't want to walk through that. That's why I do promote bootstrapping as a method, both internally at insurance companies for funding innovation, rather than seeking large amounts of funding, generate a cash cow that can fund its own innovation and ideas. So that's you can do bootstrapping internally in a company, but you can also do it externally for starting a business. I promote it heavily because it forces you to make really hard choices early. It forces you to make your mistakes small. There's a lot of really good benefits, but you know, there's a reason that like microfinance is a really big deal in Africa. And like I have a few friends who are pretty involved in that, and that's where they take, you know, budding entrepreneurs in Africa. They give them a tiny loan. I mean, they're talking about loans that are in the single-digit thousands. You know, a $2,000, $5,000, $8,000 loan to buy enough supplies to get their business kick-started, and then they're able to take the profit, repay the loan quickly, and then be on their own. There's a lot of companies that really don't need a lot of capital. There are some businesses that need an incredible amount of capital to get started. So that's really that's what my point was, and why I think it really drives really good habits and good behaviors, because it forces you to be capital efficient, which is a really good habit to start early in business. There's just way too many businesses that burn way too much capital.
Yeah. Okay. Let's dial back a minute on the mentorship thing. I wrote down mentoring is undervalued at the college level. What do you mean by that?
Well, they just don't.
Undervalued from the professional perspective or from the college perspective, the college student perspective?
I'd say all around. I said companies don't do a good job of having intentional mentoring programs. Universities don't do a great job at having intentional mentoring programs. They're rare. When they work really well. I've got an example of one that really works that I've been involved with now for 17 years. I was in the Corps of Cadets at Texas A&M, which is the military college inside of A&M. A&M is one of 6 senior military colleges in the country. And we've got 2,400 cadets that wear a uniform every day, that live in dorms, that eat at their own chow hall, that drill every day, that wear the uniform to class. You know, it's like going to West Point or Citadel or VMI, but inside of a major public university. And we just noticed with my old unit, because we're divided into units, right? Like a standard military org chart, it's a pyramid, right? That our particular unit, we were just turning over a lot of freshmen. Like we had a lot of turnover. I mean, these 18-year-olds were coming in, and we'd lose sometimes half the freshman class, because it's hard being a first year in any military organization.
Yeah.
You can be called a plebe.
You're the grunt. What do they call them?
Well, a lot of names for them. You can be called a plebe. You can be called fish, and at A&M we call fish. You know, you can.
What is fish?
Fish it's freshman fish, but it's, you know, generally first years get hazed. Generally, and there is no hazing anymore, right? There's no hazing. So, but they get a lot of pressure. They get a lot of pressure. Even now,
sure, yeah.
Like the Corps at A&M now actually does follow state and federal hazing guidelines, but there's still an incredible amount of pressure. It's a pressure cooker to be a freshman. It's a pressure cooker to be the first year in almost any organization. And so we have a lot quit.
It'd be a new person at an insurance
company. Yes, it's hard. It's hard. But imagine if you had to do 100 push-ups every time you screwed up, right? And imagine if you had to stay up until 1.
Be the strongest person ever,
right? Well, there's a reason I learned how to do push-ups. You know, it's because I got a thick skull. You know, I screwed up all the time. I mean, I lied to an upperclassman my first day in the Corps. And I got busted, and I was on my face doing hundreds of push-ups my very first day in the Corps. I guess my point is a lot of freshmen encounter that and they quit. And so we formed a mentoring program to pair every freshman in our unit. And for the last 17 years, you know, we get about, you know, 15 to 20 freshmen a year in our unit. we pair them with an alumni. And starting that after they get through their first week and a half of training, they get paired up with an alumni, and then they have a regular communication. Our loss rate on freshmen plummeted because of this connection between the alumni and the freshmen. And what also changed is the culture of the outfit, because the upperclassmen, many of them maintained those mentoring relationships through their sophomore, junior, and senior year, and they became better upperclassmen. So they weren't being irrationally unreasonable as much, which reduced, because you want a high pressure environment, because you can't form diamonds unless you got heat and pressure, right? And that's kind of the way it is. I mean, people kind of tend to either do really well or leave in high pressure environments. But you want good people to stay, right? You want to weed out people that just aren't meant for this organization. But you want that to be a small number of people, because the reality is most people can endure a difficult, regimented, structured environment. And I think this is the same way with companies. Like, there's so many examples in companies where you've got a high pressure, high delivery, you've got a high performance environment. In the software business, you can't make mistakes. Mistakes means software goes down, means companies go down. There's really a lot of pressure to deliver perfectly in the software business. And so that's really why we focused on mentorship so much in the core, and why I talk about it, and why I seek out mentors constantly. One of my insurance life mentors, a guy named Skip Brechtel. I just had him on my podcast for the second time. He's in his 70s now. He's been in the insurance business for 4 decades, has taught me so much about insurance and about account management and how to do stewardship reporting and how to, all these really important things that I would have struggled with for decades had he not taught me. So that's why I talk about that. I think it's so critical, and that's where it came up in the university environment, and then I took it and tried to apply it into the corporate environment.
Yeah, for sure. In terms of the insurance industry, I think we're failing at the mentorship aspect. We've got a lot of graying within the insurance industry, and there's a lot of holding on of knowledge. As we kind of go into a technological advancement and like finding more about how technology can help the insurance industry, some of that knowledge is kind of fading away because it's not getting passed down. What are some ways that you think the insurance industry could really interact more with mentorship based on your experiences this way?
Well, I'll say this. Mentorship generally doesn't happen on accident. And so you'll see people say, "Oh yeah, I mentor these people." Okay, well, how official is that relationship? Is there a program? Is there documentation on how this works? Do you have a guide for how you mentor? Is there a cycle to this year? Do you have events where you get together? I mean, what does that actually look like? Just assigning a mentor to somebody and not doing training and follow-up, not being careful how you match mentors to mentees. That's another really big one too, by the way. We found that we had a lot more success in mentorship in the university environment when we looked at the profile of the mentor, looked at the profile of the mentee. And we actually used I don't even remember which AI algorithm we used, but we used a matching algorithm to match mentors and mentees, and we got a much better success rate because we found people that were more compatible to being mentors and mentees to each other.
Like Match.com for...
Kind of like that, but for mentoring.
Because that was their whole thing, is like, ooh, what was it? No, when The Bachelor first started, they said that they would use some kind of matchmaking process to make sure that the people on The Bachelor actually matched interests.
Yeah, they match, and matching interest doesn't mean you're going to match as a romantic couple, right? But it at least gives you a better chance of success. It's very challenging to have a personal relationship with anybody, whether they're a mentor or a date or a coworker or a fellow student. It doesn't matter what it is. If you just have no common ground and no interests, unless you're just both really kind and are eager to learn about other people, in which case you'll figure out how to develop common ground, but that's rare. So I just think...
So maybe we're missing the boat on the mentorship aspect in the industry for not being more intentional about it.
Yeah, most companies don't have programs to begin with. So in most ways it doesn't exist. So any mentorship that happens is just by accident. There are people like Skip, to me, who are just born mentors, and they constantly mentor people around them just by default. That's just their wiring, right? And certainly my dad was like that with me as well. My third client, Mike Hobble, I talk about him in my book. Every time I talked to him, he would mentor me. Every time. I didn't ask him to, he just did. He would talk about the software for his company, and then he goes, "Okay, let's talk about your business. What you got going on? How are things?
Yeah.
What are you struggling with?" And again, a good mentor knows how to ask the right questions, because if you just get on the phone call, so if you just think about this, you got to structure the program, you got to make it an actual thing, you got to pair people up, you got to match them well, but then just give a mentor just a good set of questions to ask, like, how are you doing? What are you struggling with right now? Where do if you could get help in one thing, where would it be? If you just have some really simple questions to ask people, you'll pull it out. And certainly I try as much as I can. I've got 280 employees, and then I've got my vendors as well, right? And I've got to lead this software company, and I've been trying to do that for 23 years now. I try to provide mentorship and guidance to people who are open to it, right?
Yeah. You said earlier that you seek out mentors.
I do.
What's your process for seeking out a mentor? Like James Benham seeks out a mentor. You are the mentor.
Yeah. No,
what's your process?
Thinking about it all the time. I look for people who have a lot of experience in an area that I don't have.
Okay.
And
I recently said that's probably one area I need to improve on, is because when there's an area that I don't have a lot of experience in, I kind of internalize that, and I'm like, so let me go find the information I need instead of finding the person that has. I fail at that.
Yeah, you have to find the person that has the experience there. Like when I got on city council, I was elected to city council in College Station, Texas in 2012. And I served for 2 terms. It was term limited, 2 terms. But when I got on, I really sought out our mayor, because she was, at the time, I think in her 60s. She had been serving in some kind of public office for, at least 20 years in some capacity. And she's amazing. I mean, she's just amazing. Her name's Nancy Berry. Amazing woman, very wise.
You sought out the mayor as a mentor?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and then she did. She would guide me, and I would call her, and I'd be hopped up and angry, because politics will make you crazy. I mean, it'll make you crazy.
Tell me about it.
And so, but like when you're in it, and like you're in these conflicts, and you're the one voting, and then you're in the news the next day, and it can get complicated. And so I certainly sought her out. The county commissioner became a good friend. The county judge became a good friend, who would just provide advice to me when I need. I would call him and say, hey, what did you do here? Of course, my father he had been a city councilman, so I'd call him and ask him. So I just kind of, in all my little jobs that I get, I find 1 or 2 people, maybe 3 max, that I can call on a regular basis. When I got appointed to the Texas Southern Board of Regents by Governor Abbott, I was like, okay, I've never done this before. I've taught for 5 years as an adjunct. I have 2 degrees from a public university. I know a little bit, And, I've been in public office, been an elected official, I've been an appointed official. So, I've been in business for 20 years. I was like, okay, I've got some of this, but there's a whole lot I don't know. And so I reached out to a guy that I had mutual friends with, who was on the Board of Regents of Texas A&M, and I just started calling him. I didn't ask him. By the way, it can be awkward if you ask somebody to be your mentor. It's just a lot easier if you just call them every once in a while and ask them for advice. It turns.
Oh, so don't just come out and say, "Will you be my mentor?"
Yeah,
all right, let me call my daughter real quick. Never mind.
Yeah, you can do that. Like you can. It's fine. But I've seen it. I've seen it lead. Like, people have asked me that, and I'm like, well, let's talk about that. What are you looking for? I can handle that, but a lot of people get kind of weirded out by it. In my opinion, you just, when Mike and I, Mike Hobble, Don Crawford, Jim Benham, my dad, like we never had like a DTR where we defined the relationship. I would call them and ask them for advice. Now, in my opinion, it's on the mentee to seek out the mentor, because generally mentors are busy and experienced, right? That's why they're a mentor, because they've got a lot going on. So I think it's on the mentee to seek them out. But I mean, I started calling this region, just asking for advice. Like, hey, what were the best things you did? What were the worst things you did? What do you have for me that you think I should do? Then I started finding people that knew a lot about the university. This lady had written a book about Texas Southern's history, and it's really good. It's called Born to Serve. And I read the book, and then I called her out of the blue, and I'm like, hey, I just wanted to talk about some issues I'm seeing. And she's still a professor at the university. She was a little weird. She was a little like, oh, what are you, you just wonder why a board member calling you. But she had written an incredible book on the history of this university, and I just had questions after I'm done. And I think it's just a good idea to get on the phone. And this is where most people get very uncomfortable, is you have to get on the phone and call people and ask for their time.
Yeah.
Without an agenda. There's no agenda other than just to ask them questions and learn from them. And
That's difficult in and of itself today, especially as more of us are more remote than ever. It's like, all right, well, what are we going to talk about? And well, I don't really have an agenda. I just need to pick your brain.
People get kind of weird about all this, and I'd like everybody just to. My request of the world, right, in the professional world, let's just limit it to the insurance professional world in the United States. It's just maybe calm down just a little bit. Like maybe just.
In what way would you like to see the insurance world calm down,
calm
James?
down about this? Well, no, just think about it. Like we're so particular about meetings. Like what's the agenda? When does it start? When does it end? What is it? What are you hoping to accomplish?
What are the takeaways?
That we're not allowing space to just call people and talk. Can't do that. Like, and so I would just say this, maybe just ease up just a little bit. Just ease up. Like, what if people just want to call and get to know you and have a good conversation? I had it yesterday. I had a guy who listens to my podcast and he just wanted to talk. There was no agenda. And I said, here's the meeting link. Hit me up. Like, and we were talking and he kept trying to, well, I know you're busy and I don't want to take more of your time. I'm like, hey, bro, look, I got 12 more minutes, man. What do you got?
Nice.
Like we scheduled half an hour. I'm good. Like, what do you want to talk about? Like, this is because I just don't think you should have to have an agenda for every conversation. Like, it does not have to be that formal.
Yeah.
When on earth, back in the day, business people used to go to long lunches and they'd go to a social club at lunch and they would just talk. They would exchange ideas. They would get to know people. They would develop relationships. I mean,
can you imagine what it would be like for a business person to go pluck a couple of students out of college or a high school class, just take them to lunch and explore some ideas?
Yeah, or just bring it. That's why, like, what I would do is, go to A&M and, like, because I would have students in class that would want to talk about an idea they had for a new business. And I would say, okay, well, meet me at the cafe on campus and we'll sit down and talk about it. Because, like I'm 5 miles from campus. Like I can be there in 8 minutes. It's not that big of a deal. And then we'll, go have lunch, and you do it in a public environment. You do it out at a cafe, you don't make it weird, but there's easy ways to make yourself available. And what ends up happening is you end up building this really great network of mentors and mentees. You end up doing a lot of network building. And if there is one industry that is all about relationships, it is the insurance industry.
Sure.
like underwriters would underwrite risk 400 years ago because they knew the ship captain or they knew the guy that owned the ship, and they had personal connections and they would underwrite risk for that. We still make a lot of risk decisions based on knowledge of the risk, knowledge of the people running it. We do that when we invest money. We do that when we invest risk. And so I just feel like we're trying to like formularize everything. Now, look, I'm a software guy, so I'm the one building.
Wait a second. Was that a word? Formularize?
No, I think I just made it. It's a genetic trait. I've got a very, very funny cousin who invents words. He has his.
I don't know anything about that.
His podcast is much more popular than mine. His name is Theo Vaughn, and he is crazy. He invents crazy words all the time. And
yeah, do you say mismatched or mismatch?
Mismatch. I say mismatched, but
mismatch is
but like
100%. I got a couple of extra questions for you before we wrap up here, James.
My point is that we've got to spend some more time with each other as people, like, and not have so many agendas.
You and I can spend a ton of time with each other. I would love it. You're going to be at ITC, right?
Of course, I'm speaking there.
Oh, you were talking in general to the public, not to me. Okay, that's great.
Yes, and I would love to see you there. I will be there.
Fantastic.
And I will be.
Did you just razz me the way I'm razzing you?
Yeah, well, you've got a strong Midwest accent. It's that feels like a Michigan, Illinois, Minnesota twang.
Okay, so my dad's from Illinois, but I am born, bred, and raised here in Arkansas, and you should have been at Arkansas I-Day just last week. Boy, did the Southern come out of me, and eventually I heard it, and I was like, well, there ain't no putting that cat back in the bag. We're just going to have to keep on going with it, gosh darn it.
Yeah, parent, you have a parent. I mean, I'm from South Louisiana, and I can tell you, I've spent a lot of time around Illinois, Michigan, and Minnesota Midwesterners, and that's coming strongly through. But yes, I will be at I will be at ITC. I will be at National Comp. They're running at the same time in the same conference center.
I saw that.
So I'll be speaking at both of them. I'll be exhibiting at National Comp. I'll be hanging out there. It's gonna be awesome.
All right, so you go to a lot of different conferences. This is one of the questions I have, and I kind of struggle with this too. And there's a lot of conferences in the insurance industry, like a lot of them. What, in your experience, distinguishes a conference from one that offers real value versus one that just seems more superficial? Because, like, looking at your resume of where you've spoken, you've got to have an opinion. And I'm not talking about one conference in particular, but just like, how does somebody choose to go to what conference? How can they weed through that before they even get there?
It's so hard because I have spoken at over 400 conferences, and I've exhibited it at probably another 200 or 300 on top of that.
Is that a brag or a flaw?
Flaw, I think. It's like it stops being a brag after you've done it 20 years, and
oh gosh,
been doing this 20 years. You're like, it's like when people talk about their airline status or their, whatever, their hotel status, and I'm like, it's not a brag. That's like oh, I'm sorry, that's like a travel scar.
I get free pretzels at Auntie Anne's.
Yeah,
no, I'm kidding.
Oh, so good though. So good. Cinnabon. Oh my gosh. When you walk by that in the airport.
Right.
So I struggle with this because all conferences promise the same thing: enlightenment and connections. Like fundamentally, when you look at all events, they all promise the same thing. You're gonna leave enlightened and you're gonna leave connected. And so it's really hard to separate the wheat from the chaff on this one and identify what's gonna be of value and what's not. I had a really interesting conference that ended up being my surprise winner of the year this year already. And it's because they have sessions from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. They do a lunch session as the last, 12 to 1 as the last session of the day. And then from 1 to 7, this conference has everyone sign up for excursions every day. So you do 5 hours of learning in the classroom, and then everyone signs up, and I think they had 6 or 7 programmed excursions, and there's enough spots for everybody to have one. And you go, and it's like a group tour of XYZ, or it's a cruise around the harbor, or it's a walking tour of this, or and so you end up with this group of people. And I think my group ended up being like, 20 or 30 that went on this thing. And this conference is, 300, 400 people, whatever it is. And they split it up in these several groups. And we spent the afternoon together, touring, hanging out. It was the best conference I have been to in ages because we were intentional about learning. It was not all day. It did not burn out. And then we were intentional about time, programmed time to network and socialize and get to know people.
Nice.
And so that, to me, that is now what I look for is how are you providing intentional space as a conference for us to get together? Not just networking break, which, by the way, is not intentional at all. Generally, it means we expect you to walk around the trade show floor. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, are you providing programmed activities that people can sign up for and get to know each other at?
Nice.
Because now I've been to it, and it's a specific, work. I don't know if you
set the bar. Yeah, all right. When you go next year, I need your +1.
No, I'll say what it is. I mean, it's ASCIF, the Association of State Comp Insurance Funds, and it was so good. Now, I'm not saying the other conferences were bad, but
that's definitely a very unique experience.
It was
something I've ever heard of before.
It was amazing. It was amazing. Like, I walked away and I said, it was 2.5 days of that. I said, I made more connections in this conference and I learned more than any conference I've been to in ages. And it's because I wasn't burned down on education. So yeah, I have a strong opinion on this. I mean, like, all these are good conferences. I was just looking at my October lineup. I just posted it on LinkedIn. I'm traveling to Vancouver tomorrow to go keynote the ICBA to Innovation Summit. Then I'm going to Vegas for ITC and National Comp. And then I'm going to San Diego at the end of the month for IRMI, the Construction Risk Conference. So it's, and so I've got, 4 West Coast, Pacific time events in October. So I'm going to be doing a good bit of travel, and they're all fun. They're all interesting, but the measuring stick's really high for me now. And that is, how is there intentional time for us to get to know each other other than networking break? And then, how are you providing and selecting quality education?
Yeah. All right. I've got 4 rapid fires for you. You ready? Let's test your knowledge in some way.
Nice.
Top concern in claims management today.
Well, my top concern in claims management is that we're gonna get so fixated on shiny AI tools that we're gonna forget that the average desk adjuster is still bogged down with really boring menial tasks that can be solved with really simple technology that we just need to get implemented into their desktop.
Nice.
By desktop, I mean their web browser or their mobile app. The average claims adjuster spends half their day answering questions from medical providers on when they're going to get paid. 50% of their
right.
And claim counts are going up. So my biggest concern is that claim counts per adjuster are going up, and that we've got to focus on the meat and potatoes of workflow tools to solve their real problems. Shiny objects are great, but practical solutions are more important.
It sounds like introducing an independent agent to Calendly so they can stop asking, what's your availability? All right, next question. Greatest need in work comp process today?
I mean, I think the greatest need is to identify the claims that need the most attention. When you have over 125 work comp claims per adjuster, you've got a really difficult time identifying the ones that are the high potential chance of severity and getting on top of them really early. These are complex, long-lasting claims, right? A work comp claim can last 120 years. Why? Because it can be the person who got injured and then their beneficiaries, right? So it can survive the person even passing away. It can be really complicated and really long, and they have super long tails. And so I think that we've got to do a much better job of prioritizing the work for the average adjuster that's working on claims. The same thing it could be said for underwriting. We do a much better job of prioritizing which submissions need the attention. But that's prioritization and severity prediction. They kind of go hand in hand, but we've got to do a much better job of that because the workload's going up.
It's like risk management and account management 101.
Yep.
Best way to identify when a claim or pitch is bogus?
If they cannot explain to me in 30 seconds or less how the business works and how it makes money, I'm done. Okay. And they've got to be the master of the elevator pitch. It's got to be really simple. They have to have a single sentence that describes it. And you know the kind of people I'm talking about, that you ask what they do, they take 5 minutes and you still have no freaking clue what they actually do.
It's like talking to my teenager and playing 21 questions just to try to get to the meat and potatoes of the conversation.
Yeah, and it's just like, no, I just asked, what shoes did you wear yesterday? That's all I needed to know. I didn't.
Oh, here's my daughter. Hey, when's the football game? Saturday? Great. That's what I needed to know. I will show up at any time.
Yeah.
And hope that I hit the football game.
Can we be more specific? But, in a pitch, I've got mine down, right? JB Knowledge's technology solutions for insurance, for a staff augmentation, software development firm for carriers, brokers, TPAs, and MGAs, PBMs. We build, maintain software for them. And then Terra is a core system, policy and claim software for workers' compensation focused organizations. It's a next generation work comp claims and policy software. I mean, you should be able to really easily explain it. And then they say, well, how do you make money? I said, well, at JB Knowledge, we sell our time for X amount per hour. At Terra, we sell our claim software for X amount per claim, and our policy software for X percentage of premium, or whatever it is. Like, you should be able to say exactly. What drives me really bananas is when their pricing is not simple. Pricing and terms and the business.
I've heard that a lot.
Those should last 1 minute total. When I just did a major pitch a week ago to a big prospect, and we had a whole hour lined up to talk about pricing, and we were done in 5 minutes because it was like super, super duper short conversation, because it should be short.
Yeah. Last question. Number one thing that holds someone back from success?
Oh, inability to do hard things. Yeah.
Inability to do hard things. James, thanks so much for being on Awkward Insurance today. I think I've had a blast, and thanks for being a good sport.
You think you've had a blast, or you've had a blast?
I know I've had a blast.
There you go. I want to hear the confidence that you've had a blast. I've had a blast. It's been great.
Fantastic. I'm glad you've had a blast. All right, toodles, everybody.
Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. For more content like this, visit our website or join our online community. Interact with fellow peers, become a mentor, celebrate successes, and let's learn together. Visit our website and click on the community icon to get started. Thanks for watching.